Jake had never imagined that moving to a different city could feel so surreal. He had left behind everything familiar: his old apartment, his friends, and even the little coffee shop where the barista always remembered his order. Now, he was standing in front of a building that looked like it belonged more in a science fiction movie than in the city he had grown up in. Towering metallic walls reflected the sunlight, and neon strips ran along every corner, blinking softly in colors he didn't even have names for. It was supposed to be a simple student dorm, but something about the structure made him feel like he was stepping into another world. The elevator ride to his new apartment was oddly silent, except for the soft hum of the machinery. He pressed the button for the top floor, watching the numbers climb as the doors slid shut. Every floor they passed seemed almost identical, but Jake could swear he noticed tiny differences. Shapes in the hallway walls shifted slightly, lights flickered in strange patterns, and the carpeting had a shimmer that made it look like it was moving under his feet. He shook his head and chuckled nervously. Maybe he had been watching too many alien movies before moving. When the elevator finally stopped, Jake stepped out and followed the narrow corridor to his assigned apartment. The door had a number that seemed ordinary enough, 7B. He fumbled with the key card and finally managed to get it to swipe correctly. The door slid open with a quiet hiss, revealing a space that was far more modern than anything he had seen before. Sleek furniture, transparent walls in some corners, and a faint glow emanating from hidden panels made the room feel alive. He placed his suitcase down with a sigh, looking around in awe. It was not the most cozy place he had imagined, but it was clean, functional, and surprisingly spacious. "You must be Jake," a voice said suddenly. He jumped, spinning around to see someone standing in the corner. At first he thought he was imagining things. The figure was humanoid but not quite human. Her skin had a soft iridescence like moonlight reflecting on water, and her eyes were large, slightly tilted, and seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. Her hair floated slightly, as if suspended by a gentle current of air. Jake's mind raced. Yeah, he managed, still staring. "And you must be—" "I'm Leora," she said with a small smile. "Your roommate." "Roommate?" Jake blinked. "You mean, we're sharing this apartment?" "Yes," Leora replied simply. She didn't seem offended by his reaction. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, studying him with those strange glowing eyes. There was something calming about her presence despite her otherworldly appearance. Jake cleared his throat and stepped further into the room. "Right, okay, nice to meet you." He offered a hand awkwardly, which she took with a light touch that sent a strange shiver through his arm. Not unpleasant, just unusual. Leora gestured toward a small section of the apartment separated by a sliding panel. "That area is mine. You can keep your things wherever you like in the other section. Please respect the boundaries." Jake nodded quickly. Of course. Totally understand." He could feel his pulse racing. Sharing an apartment with an alien. It sounded insane when he said it out loud. He had read about humans interacting with aliens, even living among them. But it always seemed like something out of a news story or a movie. And now, it was happening to him. Over the next few hours, Jake unpacked his belongings, keeping an eye on Leora from time to time. She moved gracefully around her section of the apartment, arranging things with a precision that almost seemed unnatural. Occasionally, faint light shimmered around her hands when she touched certain objects, and he realized they weren't ordinary gadgets. He didn't dare ask too many questions yet, afraid he might offend her or make himself look foolish. That night he lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Strange noises echoed from Leora's section, soft hums almost like musical notes punctuated by clicks and whirs. He tried to focus on falling asleep, telling himself it was probably just machinery, maybe some advanced alien technology. But the curiosity gnawed at him relentlessly. Who was she really? Why was she here on Earth? And what exactly did she do in that room that seemed alive? The next morning, Jake woke to find a holographic display hovering in the corner of the living area. It showed data streams, glowing symbols, and diagrams he couldn't begin to understand. Leora was standing in front of it, her fingers moving through the air as if conducting an invisible orchestra. The pattern shifted in response to her gestures, forming shapes that reminded him of distant constellations and complex machines all at once. Jake froze, unsure if he should speak. She didn't seem to notice him at first, entirely focused on whatever task she was performing. His heart raced. He had expected a roommate to be unusual, maybe even eccentric, but this was beyond anything he had imagined. He felt both fascinated and terrified. "Jake," Leora said calmly, not turning around. Her voice was soft, almost melodic. "You may observe, but please do not touch anything." Jake nodded quickly, feeling like a child caught in a museum he shouldn't be in. I won't," he said, though he wasn't sure if she had heard him over the hum of the device. For the rest of the day, Jake watched in awe as Leora moved effortlessly between different sections of her room, interacting with holographic objects that seemed to follow the laws of physics he didn't understand. It was like watching a painter create an entire universe in real time, each movement precise, deliberate, and mesmerizing. Despite her distance, Leora was not unkind. Occasionally she would glance at him, offering a brief smile or a nod, acknowledging his presence without breaking the rhythm of her work. Jake realized that she had probably noticed his fascination but didn't see it as a threat. It made him feel both relieved and even more curious. Days passed and Jake started to adapt to the rhythm of sharing an apartment with someone so extraordinary. He maintained a careful distance, respecting her space, but his mind constantly wandered to the mysteries she represented. He found himself researching alien technology, reading about interstellar travel, and learning as much as he could about species from other worlds. Each discovery only deepened his curiosity. One night, Jake heard a sudden noise, a sharp click followed by a soft hum. He opened his door slightly, peeking into Leora's section. At first, he thought she was simply working with her holographic devices as usual, but then he noticed something else. Her form seemed to shimmer as if her body itself was interacting with energy fields that were invisible to him most of the time. He gasped softly, catching her attention immediately. She turned, her expression calm but unreadable. "Jake," she said, not scolding him, just stating his name as a gentle reminder. "Curiosity is natural, but boundaries are important." Jake felt a rush of embarrassment and nodded quickly. "Sorry, I didn't mean to." Leora interrupted with a small wave of her hand. "It's all right. You are human. Your species is naturally inquisitive, but you must understand, some things are not meant for immediate comprehension. Patience is a form of respect." Jake sat back down on his bed, both fascinated and humbled. He realized that living with Leora was going to challenge everything he thought he knew about intelligence, technology, and the limits of human understanding. And despite the strangeness of it all, he felt a spark of excitement he hadn't felt in years. This was no ordinary roommate. This was someone, or something, that could change the way he saw the universe. As he lay there staring at the ceiling once again, Jake made a silent promise to himself. He would learn, observe, and understand no matter how long it took. There was a story unfolding in that apartment, one that he had walked into by accident, but it was now his to witness, and he knew deep down that whatever came next, it would leave him completely speechless. The night deepened and the apartment settled into a quiet rhythm. Jake could hear the faint hum of Leora's devices, almost like the heartbeat of the space around them. He closed his eyes, imagining the vast reaches of space she had come from, the civilizations she had known, and the knowledge she carried silently. Somewhere out there, human ingenuity might meet alien brilliance, and he was right in the middle of it. Sleep finally claimed him. But the thoughts lingered, curiosity, wonder, and a sense of destiny he couldn't yet understand. He had stepped into a story far bigger than himself, and tomorrow, or perhaps the day after, that story would begin to reveal itself in ways he could never have predicted. And for the first time in a long time, Jake felt truly awake. Jake woke early the next morning, his mind still spinning from the previous day. He couldn't stop thinking about Leora and the strange technologies she had been working with. His curiosity had grown into something he could barely contain, but he knew he had to be careful. Leora had made it clear that some things were private and he didn't want to upset her. Still, the human part of him, the part that had always wanted to explore, to discover, kept tugging him forward. He got ready quickly, showered, and had a light breakfast while watching Leora from a distance. She moved around her space with the same calm precision as always. Every gesture, every movement seemed to be part of some larger pattern that he couldn't comprehend. She adjusted some floating holograms, pressed invisible buttons in the air, and a soft blue glow pulsed from her hands as the symbols and shapes shifted. Jake felt a mixture of awe and fear. It was like watching someone command the very fabric of reality, and yet she appeared completely ordinary to her own eyes. As he was turning to leave the apartment for classes, he heard a a soft click that made him pause. The door to Leora's section was slightly open. He froze, unsure what to do. His instincts told him to respect her privacy, but another part of him whispered, just a quick look, just to understand. He knew it was risky, but his curiosity got the better of him. Jake took a careful step forward, then another. His heart pounded in his chest as he peered inside. At first, nothing seemed unusual. The holograms floated as usual, the symbols shifting and glowing in intricate patterns. Then he saw her, not working with her devices, but changing her form. Her body shimmered almost like it was made of liquid light. Colors and energy flowed across her skin in patterns he couldn't describe. Her eyes glowed brighter, and faint, translucent wings formed on her back, radiating a soft light. Jake's mouth went dry. He could barely breathe. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. She wasn't just an alien in appearance. She was something entirely extraordinary. It was as if she could bend energy and reality around her, interacting with her technology in ways humans could never imagine. He felt a mix of fear and wonder. Leora sensed his presence immediately. She didn't scream or panic. She simply looked at him, her glowing eyes calm and knowing. "Jake," she said softly, almost like a melody. "You are not supposed to see this yet." Jake stumbled back, tripping over the edge of the rug, and managed to steady himself. I didn't mean to." Leora raised a hand, stopping him mid-apology. "It is all right. Curiosity is natural. Humans are meant to explore and ask questions, but some knowledge requires patience. You must learn to observe without interference." Jake nodded, still frozen in place. His mind raced with questions, but he didn't know where to start. How are you doing that?" he whispered, pointing vaguely at her shimmering form. She smiled faintly, the energy around her pulsing gently. "This is a part of my species. We interact with energy fields and information in ways that humans cannot naturally perceive. What you see is normal for me, but unusual for your kind." Jake tried to absorb what she was saying. "So, you're saying you can control energy and change your form?" "In a sense," Leora replied. "We can manipulate certain fields, perceive patterns, and interact with technology beyond ordinary touch. It is not magic. It is understanding, knowledge, and practice." Jake swallowed hard, feeling both intimidated and inspired. He realized that he was sharing space with someone far more advanced than anyone he had ever met. And yet, she was here, living among humans, sharing her life with him in the same apartment. For the next several minutes, Jake stood silently watching her. Leora returned to her holographic devices, her movements precise and fluid. Patterns shifted, constellations formed and dissolved, and symbols flashed like stars across the room. Jake couldn't tear his eyes away. It was mesmerizing. He felt like he had stumbled into a place that existed between science and art, where reality itself was a canvas and Leora the painter. Finally, Leora spoke again. "You may observe for a moment longer, but then you must leave. It is important for both our comfort and safety." Jake nodded quickly, feeling both nervous and grateful. I understand. Thank you." He backed out of her space carefully, closing the door quietly behind him. Once he returned to his own section, he sank onto the edge of his bed, his mind racing. His curiosity had grown into something more intense than ever. He wanted to understand, to learn, to see what she was capable of. But he also realized that this required patience. Leora had boundaries, and respecting them would be essential if he hoped to gain her trust. Over the next few days, Jake tried to act normally, going to classes and keeping up with his own routines. But his attention kept drifting to Leora. He noticed details he hadn't before, the way her eyes seemed to track more than just movement, the faint hum in the air when she interacted with her devices, and the almost imperceptible shimmer of energy around her form. He began taking notes quietly, sketching patterns he saw, trying to make sense of what he was witnessing. One evening, Jake was cooking a simple meal when Leora approached him. "You have been observing," she said gently, her voice calm but knowing. Jake froze, the spoon in his hand mid-stir. I, I mean, I'm just curious, he stammered. Leora smiled faintly. Curiosity is acceptable. It is human nature. But understanding comes from patience, not intrusion. Jake nodded quickly. I understand. I'll be more careful. For the first time, he noticed a slight glow in her eyes that seemed almost like amusement. Very well, she said. Perhaps in time I will allow you to see more. But you must promise to respect my space and the limits of what I can reveal. Jake agreed immediately, feeling a thrill of anticipation. The idea that she might let him see more was both exciting and terrifying. He realized that this roommate arrangement was far more than a simple living situation. It was an opportunity to witness something extraordinary, something that could change the way he understood life and the universe. That night, Jake lay in bed, thinking about everything he had seen. He imagined Leora's home planet, the species she came from, and the advanced knowledge she carried silently. He thought about the possibilities of human and alien collaboration, about what humans could learn if they approached beings like her with curiosity and respect, rather than fear. As he drifted off to sleep, he felt a mixture of wonder, excitement, and determination. He had walked into an apartment expecting a normal roommate experience, and instead, he had discovered a living miracle. And he knew that the next time he stepped into her space, if she allowed it, he would be ready to witness more, to learn more, and to prove that human curiosity, intelligence, and courage were worth sharing this extraordinary experience. The next morning came quickly, and Jake awoke with a sense of anticipation he hadn't felt in years. He wondered if today would be the day he would finally understand more about Leora's abilities, about her world, and perhaps even about himself. He knew that living with her was going to test him in ways he hadn't imagined, but he was ready. Human curiosity, after all, had led to countless discoveries throughout history. And now, in this small apartment on the edge of an interstellar city, it might lead to something far greater. Jake had no idea what he would see next, but he was certain of one thing. He would never forget the sight of Leora, glowing and radiant, interacting with a reality he could barely understand. The memory of it would stay with him forever, a reminder that humans, while limited, had the capacity to witness and learn from wonders far beyond their ordinary perception. As he got up to prepare for the day, Jake felt a renewed sense of purpose. This was no ordinary roommate. This was a being from another world, and she had chosen to live among humans. He had been given a chance to observe, to learn, and perhaps to understand something that most humans could never imagine, and he was determined not to waste it. The hum of Leora's devices floated through the apartment once more as Jake stepped out of his section. He paused for a moment, listening to the soft energy vibrations and the faint shimmer of light that seemed to move through the air like liquid. He smiled to himself, feeling a connection he couldn't yet explain. He knew that the next time he walked into her space, he would be ready, both in mind and heart, to witness the extraordinary again. And with that thought, Jake left for his classes, carrying the memory of Leora's brilliance with him, excited for the day when he might see it again. Days passed, and Jake found himself becoming more comfortable with the strange rhythm of living with Leora. He was still in awe of her abilities, but the initial shock had faded into a deep fascination. He spent his time observing from a distance, learning her habits, noticing patterns in how she interacted with her holographic devices, and how her energy seemed to ripple in waves around her. He realized that she wasn't just performing tasks, she was creating, experimenting, and exploring in a way that went far beyond human understanding. One evening, as the city outside the apartment hummed with activity, Leora approached him while he was sketching patterns he had noticed in her displays. Her glowing eyes were calm, and there was a softness in her expression he hadn't seen before. "Jake," she said, her voice gentle, "you have been patient. I think it is time to show you a little more." Jake's heart skipped a beat. He had hoped for this moment, but never dared imagine it would come so soon. "Really?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Leora nodded. "Yes, but you must promise to observe without interference. What I show you is complex. You may not fully understand it yet, but it is important that you respect it." "I promise," Jake said eagerly, feeling a mixture of excitement and nerves. He could sense that this moment would change everything he had thought about the universe and himself. She led him to the center of her section, where the holographic displays floated in intricate patterns. She raised her hands, and the symbols began to shift and rotate, forming new constellations and shapes that seemed to stretch into dimensions Jake couldn't imagine. Light curved in arcs around them, and faint streams of energy flowed through the air, visible only in the shimmer that accompanied her movements. Jake watched in awe as she manipulated the displays. "This is incredible," he whispered. "I've never seen anything like this." "It is a representation of knowledge," Leora explained. "These patterns are not just symbols. They are connections between energy, information, and possibilities. They show what exists, what could exist, and what we can create." Jake tried to follow her explanation, but the more he watched, the more he realized he couldn't fully comprehend it. It was like trying to read a language that had no words, only feelings and intuition. Yet he was determined to learn, to understand as much as he could. Leora smiled faintly at his determination. "Humans are limited in perception, but you have curiosity, creativity, and determination. That is why I allowed you to observe. You may not see everything, but you can learn from the patterns even in your own way." Over the next few hours, Jake followed her instructions. He sketched the constellations, tried to mimic the movements she used to manipulate the displays, and asked questions when he could. Leora answered patiently, guiding him gently, without ever taking away the sense of mystery. As the night deepened, the displays began to shift, forming a simulation of her home planet. Jake watched in wonder as landscapes, cities, and beings appeared, all in glowing patterns of light. He could see rivers of energy, structures that seemed to defy gravity, and creatures moving with a grace that seemed impossible. Leora's voice narrated quietly, explaining aspects of her world, her people, and the responsibilities she carried as a researcher. "It is beautiful," Jake said softly, almost afraid to break the silence. "I never imagined a place like this existed." Leora nodded. "It is not perfect, but it is home, and it is what we strive to understand. Ourselves, each other, and the universe around us." Jake felt a connection he couldn't explain. Seeing her world, even in simulation, made him realize how small yet capable humans were. They lacked her natural abilities, but humans had imagination, persistence, and courage. He realized that even in the face of beings far more advanced, humans could still make a difference. As the night wore on, Leora began to speak more about herself, revealing details he hadn't known. She explained that she was here on Earth to study human culture, emotions, and problem-solving abilities. Her mission was peaceful, but it required her to remain discreet. Humans had potential she believed could complement her species' understanding of the universe. Jake listened intently. "So, you're learning from us?" he asked, amazed. "In a way," Leora said, "but it is mutual. You learn from observing me, and I learn from observing you. Cooperation and understanding can achieve what neither species can alone." Jake's mind raced with possibilities. He thought about the ways humans had explored the stars, created civilizations, and faced challenges that seemed impossible. He realized that even with all of Leora's abilities, there was something unique in humans: resilience, creativity, and determination. And perhaps that was why she had chosen to live with him, even temporarily. Days turned into weeks, and the bond between them grew. Jake began to understand her methods, her careful attention to energy flows, and the precision with which she manipulated her devices. He noticed subtle patterns in her behavior, learning to anticipate her movements, and even started to predict some of the display's transformations. Leora, in turn, seemed to appreciate his attention and effort, occasionally smiling or offering a brief explanation when he asked insightful questions. One afternoon, as they worked together on a complex simulation, a sudden alert flashed across her displays. The light shifted to red, and a warning tone echoed softly through the apartment. Leora's calm expression remained, but Jake noticed a subtle tension in her posture. "They are here," she said quietly. "Others from my species. They track my movements. We must be careful." Jake's heart skipped a beat. He had known she was from another world, but the idea that she could be pursued on Earth was terrifying. "What do we do?" he asked, his voice steady despite the fear rising in his chest. "We prepare," Leora replied. "But you must trust me and follow my instructions. Humans have strengths you may not recognize, and together, We can handle this challenge. Over the next several hours, Leora guided him through preparations. She activated hidden shields, adjusted holographic decoys, and explained the ways energy could be manipulated to obscure her location. Jake followed every instruction, feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness. He realized that this was more than an experiment or observation. This was a real test of human ingenuity and courage alongside alien brilliance. When the moment came, they heard faint disturbances outside the apartment, signs that the pursuers had arrived. Jake could feel the energy in the air shift, a subtle pressure that made the hairs on his arms stand on end. He glanced at Leora, who remained calm, her glowing eyes fixed on the displays. "You are ready," she said softly. "Remember what I taught you. Observe, think, and act with precision. We will face this together." Jake nodded, feeling a surge of determination. He had spent weeks learning, observing, and preparing. He wasn't just a human in awe anymore. He was a participant, a partner, someone capable of contributing to their survival. The next hours passed in a blur of coordinated movement. Leora guided Jake in real time, manipulating energy fields while he activated devices, moved objects, and followed her instructions with precision. The apartment became a symphony of light, sound, and energy, each action carefully timed and executed. Jake realized that despite his lack of natural abilities like Leora, his human traits, creativity, quick thinking, and courage were invaluable in this situation. By the end of the night, the threat had passed. The pursuers retreated, unable to overcome the combination of Leora's alien knowledge and Jake's ingenuity. He sank to the floor, exhausted but exhilarated. Leora placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, her glow softening. "You did well," she said. "Humans often underestimate themselves, but your courage and creativity are remarkable. Today, you proved that even those with fewer natural abilities can make a difference." Jake smiled, feeling a sense of pride he had never known. He realized that humans were not weak, not insignificant. They were capable of extraordinary things when they used their minds, hearts, and instincts. As they settled down later, Jake looked at Leora with newfound respect. He understood that living with her was not just about curiosity or fascination. It was about growth, learning, and realizing the true potential of humans in a universe filled with wonders far beyond imagination. And as he drifted off to sleep that night, Jake knew one thing with certainty: his life had changed forever. He had walked into an apartment expecting a simple roommate, and instead he had discovered a world of knowledge, courage, and possibilities. He had witnessed brilliance beyond human understanding, faced danger, and realized that humans, with all their limits, had the power to rise, adapt, and make a difference. For the first time, he felt a sense of purpose that went beyond his own life, a connection to something larger, something extraordinary. And he knew that tomorrow or the day after, the story would continue to unfold, revealing more wonders, more challenges, and more chances to prove that humans could shine, even in the presence of beings far beyond their comprehension. The days after the first encounter with Leora's pursuers were tense. Jake tried to act normal, attending classes and completing his routines, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something larger was coming. The city around them seemed ordinary, yet Jake sensed the hidden layers of danger that Leora constantly monitored. She moved with quiet focus, checking her displays and adjusting shields that Jake couldn't see, preparing for threats that humans couldn't detect. One afternoon, Jake returned from classes to find the apartment unusually quiet. Leora was standing in her section, her form glowing faintly, and her eyes were fixed on the energy readings displayed around her. Jake could see her concern, subtle though it was, and felt the weight of the situation settle on him. "They are returning," Leora said, without turning. Her voice was calm, but the faint tremor in her energy told Jake she was assessing a serious threat. "They have found the trail again. This time they will attempt to breach our location directly." Jake swallowed, trying to calm his racing heart. "So, what do we do?" "You follow my instructions," she said firmly. "We must act quickly with precision. There is little time for hesitation." The next several hours became a whirlwind of preparation. Leora guided Jake in setting up energy decoys around the apartment, rearranging holographic projections to create false exits, and configuring devices that could emit pulses to mask their location. Jake worked steadily, following her directions with a mix of nervousness and determination. Every action he took had consequences, and he felt the pressure of responsibility. As the evening fell, faint tremors shook the building, signaling the approach of the pursuers. Jake could see shadows moving outside, shapes that did not belong to any human form he had ever seen. Leora's energy shimmered brighter, her wings extending slightly, responding to the vibrations around them. "You must stay calm," she said. "Observe the patterns. Think ahead. Your mind is our advantage." Jake nodded, gripping a small control panel she had given him. It could redirect energy pulses, creating illusions and diversions. He realized that while Leora had extraordinary abilities, humans had a unique strength: adaptability. He could make decisions in real time, improvising when the situation changed. The first wave of the pursuers reached the building. Jake watched through the apartment's protective shields as strange forms attempted to bypass the barriers. Leora's hands moved with fluid precision, directing energy fields, blocking attempts, and sending signals that disrupted the intruder's tracking. Jake followed her instructions, redirecting pulses and activating decoys that confused the attackers. For a tense hour, the battle continued. Jake could feel the energy crackling through the apartment, vibrations under his feet and in the air around him. He realized that despite the danger, there was a rhythm to their actions. Every move he made complemented Leora's abilities, and together, they formed a coordinated defense that the pursuers could not penetrate. At one point, a larger, more aggressive pursuer breached the outer barrier, forcing Jake and Leora to react instantly. Leora's energy surged, forming protective shields around them, while Jake activated a series of pulses that forced the intruder back. His heart raced, but he remained focused, realizing that hesitation could cost them both dearly. "You are doing well," Leora said over the hum of energy. Her calmness reassured him. "Your human mind is faster in certain situations. That is why I allowed you to participate directly." Jake felt a surge of pride mixed with adrenaline. He realized that humans had strengths beyond what Leora could naturally perceive: creativity, intuition, and quick thinking under pressure. Despite being limited physically, he was making a difference, contributing to their survival. As the night progressed, the pursuers grew more frustrated. They had underestimated the combination of Leora's advanced abilities and Jake's quick decision-making. One by one, they retreated, unable to adapt to the constantly changing defenses. Jake watched as the final shadow disappeared into the darkness, leaving the city quiet once more. After the danger had passed, Jake sank to the floor, exhausted but exhilarated. Leora stood beside him, her glow softening as she assessed the apartment. "You performed admirably," she said. Humans often underestimate their potential. "Tonight, you proved that courage and intelligence can overcome challenges even in the face of superior power." Jake smiled, though he was still catching his breath. "I couldn't have done it without you," he admitted. "You guided me the whole way." Leora shook her head gently. "No, we acted as partners. You contributed in ways I could not have predicted. That is the value of human adaptability. You did not falter, and that made all the difference." For the first time, Jake felt a sense of true equality between them. He realized that despite the vast differences in their abilities, humans and Leora's species could complement each other perfectly. It was a partnership built on trust, understanding, and shared effort, a lesson that extended beyond survival. In the days that followed, Jake and Leora continued their routines, but the experience had changed him. He was more confident, more aware of his own capabilities, and more determined to learn from Leora. He spent hours studying the patterns she used, practicing his observations and trying to anticipate her movements. Leora encouraged him, offering subtle guidance and explanations that helped him refine his understanding. One afternoon, as they worked together on a complex energy simulation, Leora paused and looked at him with a faint smile. "You have progressed remarkably," she said. "I see potential in you that goes beyond mere curiosity. Your mind can grasp concepts that others might overlook, given time and focus." Jake felt a surge of pride. I never thought I could do this," he admitted. "But watching you, learning from you, it's inspiring. I want to understand more, to see what humans in your species can achieve together." Leora's expression softened. "And you will. Knowledge is not given. It is earned through observation, understanding, and patience. You have shown that you are willing to learn, and that makes you capable of far more than you realize." Their bond deepened as they spent more time together. Jake learned about Leora's culture, the values of her species, and the importance of her mission on Earth. She shared stories of her planet, her people, and the discoveries she had made. In return, Jake shared human perspectives, ideas, and creative approaches to problem-solving that fascinated her. It was clear that their partnership was becoming more than just coexistence in the same apartment. They were learning from each other, growing together, and preparing for challenges that neither could face alone. Jake realized that humans, though limited in certain ways, had unique strengths that could make them formidable partners in any endeavor. One night, as they observed the city from a high window, Jake reflected on how much he had changed in just a few weeks. He had started as a curious observer, hesitant and unsure, and now he was an active participant, confident in his abilities and proud of his contributions. Leora stood beside him, her glow soft and reassuring, a silent acknowledgement of his growth. "You have come far," she said quietly, "but the universe is vast and there is much more to learn. Our journey is only beginning." Jake nodded, feeling a mixture of excitement and determination. He knew that challenges lay ahead, but he was ready to face them. With Leora by his side and with the lessons he had learned about courage, intelligence, and adaptability, he felt capable of anything. And as he looked out at the city lights, Jake understood a profound truth. Humans, despite their limitations, had the power to rise, adapt, and excel in ways that could surprise even the most advanced beings. That night, he felt a deep sense of purpose, knowing that the story of their partnership was far from over, and that the next chapter would test both of them in ways they could not yet imagine. The city was quiet that evening, the hum of distant traffic barely noticeable through the reinforced shields Leora had set up. Jake could feel the calm before the storm, a tense stillness that suggested something was about to happen. He had spent weeks learning from Leora, observing her techniques and practicing his own skills. He no longer felt like the nervous human who had stumbled into her apartment weeks ago. Now he was alert, prepared, and ready to act. Leora stood beside him, her glowing form radiating soft blue light, her wings slightly extended. "They will come again," she said, her voice steady. "But this time we will not merely defend. We will show them that humans and our species together are a force to be reckoned with." Jake nodded, feeling a rush of determination. "I'm ready. Whatever comes, I'll follow your lead and contribute however I can." Leora smiled faintly, her eyes glowing brighter. "Good. Remember observation, understanding, and quick action. You are ready to face what others may underestimate." As night fell completely, the first signs of the pursuers appeared. Shadows moved outside the building, larger and more numerous than before. They had come prepared, anticipating resistance. But Jake and Leora were not the same targets as before. Over the past weeks, they had learned to coordinate perfectly, anticipating each other's movements and strategies. Jake activated the first line of energy decoys, which flickered like phantoms in the dark. The pursuers hesitated, unsure which paths were real. Leora manipulated the energy fields, redirecting pulses and creating zones of confusion. Jake followed her instructions flawlessly, activating controls that amplified the shields and reinforced the illusions. Together, they turned the apartment into a maze of light and energy, one that the intruders could not easily navigate. One pursuer managed to break through the outer barrier, larger and more aggressive than any before. It lunged forward, energy crackling around it. Jake reacted instantly, recalling the precise instructions Leora had given him. He activated a pulse that diverted the intruder's energy, and Leora struck in perfect timing, wrapping the being in a containment field that neutralized its aggression without causing harm. Jake realized how far he had come. Weeks ago, he would have panicked at such a threat. Now he moved with purpose, confidence, and skill. Every decision he made had an impact, and he could see the results immediately. Leora's guidance and his human creativity complemented each other, forming a seamless partnership. The battle continued, with shadows attempting different strategies to penetrate their defenses. Jake and Leora adapted instantly, anticipating their moves, setting traps, and redirecting energy in precise ways. They moved in sync, communicating silently through subtle gestures and shared understanding. Jake's pulse quickened, not with fear but with exhilaration. He had never felt more alive, more capable, or more connected to someone or something else. After hours of tense engagement, The final intruder retreated. Jake and Leora stood side by side, energy still humming faintly around them. The city outside was quiet once again, but this time, the calm felt different. It was not the fragile peace after a near defeat. It was the victory of teamwork, intelligence, and courage. "You did remarkably well," Leora said softly, her glow dimming to a gentle radiance. "You are no longer merely an observer, Jake. You are a partner, a participant, and a valuable asset. Humans have potential beyond what many believe." Jake smiled, still catching his breath. "I couldn't have done it without you. You taught me everything: patience, observation, strategy, and you trusted me to act when it mattered." Leora's expression softened, "And you proved that trust was justified. Today we demonstrated that even in a universe filled with beings far more advanced, humans can excel. They are adaptable, resourceful, and capable of extraordinary courage. That is why I am here, to learn, to observe, and to realize that humans can rise to challenges others cannot." For the first time, Jake truly understood the HFY principle. Humans might lack natural powers, but their intelligence, creativity, and courage could bridge the gap between ordinary and extraordinary. He had witnessed it firsthand, and he had lived it. In the days that followed, life in the apartment returned to a calm rhythm, though Jake and Leora remained vigilant. They spent time studying simulations, discussing strategies, and refining their techniques. The bond between them deepened, built on shared experience, trust, and respect. Jake no longer viewed Leora as simply an alien roommate. He saw her as a partner, a teacher, and a friend. One evening, as they observed a holographic map of the city and its energy flows, Leora turned to Jake. "You have grown in ways I did not anticipate. Your mind is quick, your intuition sharp, and your courage undeniable. Humans often doubt themselves, but you have proven that you are capable of greatness." Jake laughed softly, feeling pride and humility at the same time. "I still have so much to learn, but I feel like I understand a little more about what humans can do when we face challenges together." Leora's glow brightened briefly, like a smile of approval. "Exactly. Curiosity, determination, and courage, these traits define humans. Your species has the potential to rise, even among the stars, and achieve what seems impossible." That night, as Jake lay in bed, he reflected on how much his life had changed. He had walked into an apartment expecting an ordinary roommate experience and had instead discovered a being of incredible abilities. He had witnessed wonders beyond imagination, faced danger, and learned that humans, though limited in some ways, could achieve extraordinary things. Jake realized that the experiences he shared with Leora were more than personal growth. They were proof of human potential. Courage, intelligence, and adaptability could shine even in the presence of beings far advanced. And perhaps in the future, humans would play a crucial role in shaping the universe alongside species like Leora's. The next morning, Jake awoke to the soft hum of energy and the gentle glow of Leora's presence. He smiled, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. Together, they would continue to explore, learn, and face whatever challenges the universe presented. He understood now that humans were not powerless. They were resilient, resourceful, and capable of remarkable feats when they used their minds, hearts, and determination. Leora floated beside him, her eyes glowing with warmth. "Shall we continue our studies today?" she asked, her tone calm yet inviting. Jake nodded eagerly. "Yes, there's so much to learn, and I want to understand it all." As they began the day, moving together through simulations, energy manipulations, and experiments, Jake realized that this partnership was more than discovery. It was the embodiment of hope, courage, and the limitless potential of humans. He had started as a curious observer, but now he was a participant, ready to face the unknown alongside a being of brilliance and power. And as the sun rose over the city, casting light on the apartment where a human and an alien lived and learned together, Jake understood the truth of his journey. Humans could rise to any challenge, adapt to any situation, and shine even in the presence of the extraordinary. The universe was vast, full of wonders and mysteries, but humans had the capacity to meet them, to learn from them, and to triumph. He smiled at Leora, who returned the gesture with a gentle glow. Together they continued forward, partners, learners, and pioneers. The extraordinary had become their reality, and Jake knew that no matter what the universe held, humans would always have the courage, creativity, and determination to face it. The story of a human walking into an alien roommate's world by mistake had ended not with fear, but with understanding, partnership, and a vision of what humans could achieve. Jake had seen it, lived it, and learned that even in the vastness of space and the brilliance of beings beyond imagination, humanity had a place, a voice, and a power that could never be underestimated. And in that quiet apartment, filled with light, energy, and possibility, Jake knew that life would never be the same again.